flight incident started the next day when I returned to Hong Kong. We actually got turned back in the middle of the air, returned to KL due to a technical fault. I was flying Malaysian Airlines Flight 72 to Hong Kong. There was a pretty uneventful takeoff. Around 10 a.m., we rotated out of 3-2 right, and I can hear the front wheel was doing a bit of rolling while during the gear retraction, but nothing really happens. Around 50 minutes into the mid-air, suddenly, I heard the captain came on the PA, made a quick announcement saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, due to technical difficulties, our flight will be returning to Kuala Lumpur." He says no more after this, and it was silence, and left all of us wonder what's happening. In my 30 years of career flying, I had lots of ground delay, technical difficulties, switching planes, but we haven't had a mid-air turn back. And this has to be quite serious. It could be dramatic. We all knew what happened the prior week with Air India, right? It really left me a little bit uneasy and anxious, start to think, do we have an engine issue? Or do we have a hydraulic issue? Or do we have a landing gear retraction issue? What could be gone wrong? I was really have so much thoughts into my head and started to worry more than anyone else. What's worse was the PTV, the map was not showing the actual location of the plane at that time. I could see we were flying around 34 to 35,000 feet, and I have no more information. So eventually we started to descend, but I hear this loud noise. I don't know what it was. I thought it was landing gear bay or landing gear down, but later I realized it was probably the flaps was down, and try to burn off the excess fuel to have a less weight landing, avoiding an overweight landing. So we were circling, later I found out around 18,000 feet for quite some time, about half an hour. I was thinking maybe he's calling back the base to troubleshoot what could gone wrong on the plane. There was no information given again, so it was quiet in the cabin, and cabin crew seems pretty relaxed. They were doing just the final cabin check, but they didn't tell anyone to brace or didn't tell anyone about safety emergency evacuation. And my wife is a flight attendant. She was telling me that you should look at all the safety equipment where they are just in case. And I started to think, wow, is this a real incident? Is this going to happen on my flight? Oh my gosh. So after another half an hour, we finally left the holding pattern and proceed to land in KL. The landing was a pretty uneventful landing on runway 32 right. Wow, so after all, I felt more relaxed when we got to the gates. Didn't know what happened after 2 hours in the air, and now walking out of the plane back to the terminal in KL. There was engineer came on board. Later, I asked one of the engineer what had went wrong, and he said autopilot failed during the mid-air. So that was the reason the autopilot did not work. Because the autopilot was in fault, he cannot keep up at a flight level 340 as planned. He has to descend to below the reduced vertical separation minimum RVSM airspace to avoid traffic. So you have to fly below flight level 290, and that gives you severe fuel penalty to all the way to Hong Kong. And then we probably could not have enough fuel all the way to Hong Kong without refueling. So I think the captain made an absolute right decision to return to KL and focus on his flying. I wish he could explain a little bit more, but eventually I found out on the ground what happened. And credit to Malaysia Airlines, they recovered the incident pretty quickly. Within an hour, they found another 737-800, and within an hour, we boarded the flight and off to Hong Kong again. And I was pretty dead tired after that, and after 4 hours of flying, we saw the Hong Kong skyline, and we know that we're coming to land in Hong Kong. And that incident made the whole day much longer. That became 9 hours from KL to Hong Kong after the first flight, and return back and wait, and then after, and take off again. And what an interesting story out of 2 Malaysia Airlines flights. And I hope you enjoy my story. See you next week.